All right, good evening, folks, and welcome back to Wilderness Wargaming. Today, we're going to do another double header as we try desperately to keep up with the Warhammer community's fast and furious release of new faction focus articles as 10th edition approaches us very, very quickly. Today, we're going to hit the Tau Empire and the Chaos Knights. Now, I had originally kind of meant to make the Tau one a little more in depth because, to be perfectly frank, I don't like the Tau. They're my least favorite army. I don't really enjoy playing against them very much, although I have played them a remarkable amount since I came back to the hobby. That's mainly because my most formidable opponent plays them a lot. Now, if you happen to like the Tau and you want to play them, that's fine. It's not that I think they should be removed or gotten rid of anything, but I would say, had I been designing the game way back when the Tau were being developed, I would have developed something else, because I don't think that they're really the greatest thing. And I should do another video on why that is, because it isn't so much the Tau exclusively. It's kind of a problem with heavily shooting-oriented armies. The Tau are just the worst offenders. Other ones, they're kind of a little more under control. They have a little bit more melee tools. But the Tau have a real disease, or have, in my limited experience with them. I think I've played them 5 or 6 times now, that they just fire hose shooting at you, especially if they get the first turn, shoot a ton of stuff off the board, and then no matter what you do to them back, it's either killing drones, or it's getting invulned, or it's getting moon shrugged, or something like that. And it's very, very hard to get to grips with them, because even if you are a relatively fast-moving melee army, you're getting overwatched every time you try to charge something meaningful, and it's just a real struggle. So let's get into this without further ado, and then right after the Tau, we're going to go right into the Chaos Knight. Also, just real quick, whether or not the Tau are space commies is not a particularly interesting question to me. They're not humans, and I don't think that the concept really translates all that well. So that's not really a factor. I do not like commies. If you're a communist, you're wrong. Sorry, stop being bad. But as far as the Tau, I don't think that the concept translates that well, and I don't like to impose real-world political ideas, real or imaginary, on any faction in 40K, because the whole place is just supposed to be kind of crazy. To the degree that I do impose anything on them, I'd say the orcs are basically real-life football hooligans, and that's as involved as I want to get in that. I do have to say, though, some of the Tau models, especially when they're well-painted, do look very cool. I really, really like this orange model down here. As far as I cannot include looks in my list of army criticisms for the Tau. Okay, so let's see. Okay, for the greater good. So this is this shooting, and now this one, I don't think this is too overpowered, and may represent an improvement from my past experience with the Tau, as far as not being so overly over the top in terms of the shooting. But I must say, it wins the award for the most complicated ability that I've seen so far in this edition. And that alone makes me a little leery of it, because I think it actually will require you to pay close attention as the opposing player to who's shooting at what. If for no other reason than because I think your opponent is likely to get interrupted, make mistakes, forget stuff themselves, and you, even if it's an entirely friendly game, you're just going to have to help keep each other on track with this thing. So basically, 2 units that can see the same target. The 2 units do not have to be able to see each other. They just have to be able to see the same target unit. If the unit being guided, which is one of the 2 units, is not already an observer unit, in other words, being the spotting unit for another unit, it can use this ability. So basically, you're going to have one unit that does observing, and that grants guided to the other unit. And the guided unit gets a +1 to their ballistic skill, and if the observer unit has the marker light keyword, the attack has the ignores cover ability. And then each time the guided unit makes an attack against something else, they get their ballistic skill worsened by 1. Okay, so now where this could get complicated is there is no limit, I don't think, that you can use the same unit as an observer. So you could have one unit with a marker light, and as far as I can tell, it can observe 2 or 3 different enemy units, or it can observe 2 or 3 friendly guided units, I think. This is what I mean about this ability is very complicated. It is not super hard to understand in its most straightforward interpretation of basically a triangle where you have your target here and then your observer over here and your guided over here, and this guy observes and this guy shoots and gets the benefits. Okay, fine. But then what if there's another unit over here shooting? Can they shoot at that same using the same observation? I think they can based on this, but it's not eminently clear to me. The other thing with this is it does have a cool kind of a real world aspect of artillery observation. So in my real world Army career, my branch is artillery. And in artillery, you have an artillery observer, you have the target, and then you have a firing unit that actually shoots at the target in the simplest way of doing things. Now, in modern doctrine, this gets way more complicated. You have all these kill chains and there's a lot more information flow to it than that. But in the most basic, simple way that they teach you at artillery school. So I like that allusion to how things are really done. And I kind of wish that the Imperial Guard had a role like this too, because I feel like it would have fit really nicely into that army, even though it's not one of mine. But with all that said, I think it needs clarification. And I do think it's going to make our positioning and army construction really complex for the Tau themselves and for the opponent. Now, there's one other thing is this ignores cover ability. I've already seen too much of this ignores cover. This is a thing this would probably be my top thing that I do not like in 10th edition so far. Though maybe the one thing I've seen that really goes beyond the level of quibble, and Games Workshop, you got this wrong. Get rid of ignores cover. Ignores cover is nonsense. If you have to have it, leave it only on torrent weapons. Other than that, this ability just nobody should have it, and not Tau or anybody else. If you have to give them something else, if you wanted to just give them a +1 to armor penetration, then that's fine. What I maybe do is that I don't know, I would maybe put something else in there if we absolutely had to. Maybe even get rid of the second bullet if we had to, but get rid of this ignores cover. I just hate that. Okay, so you select an observer. This is an elegant unit, and you have marker lights. Now, this is something that I think we'll get to a little later. Is the marker lights are not drones anymore, so you're not going to be using your marker lights as shields for your units as extra ablative wounds, just like you're not going to have shield drones as ablative wounds. And you're also not going to be rolling to hit with marker lights, which that's another thing that confused the heck out of me as a Tau opponent too, was how many marker lights on what at what time. Yeah, I'm not sorry to see that get at least knocked down a little bit. Then we have the Patient Hunter. They're keeping the Cao Yuan. Okay, this was the second version of the Tao's doctrine that they had in this one, the one that was in the later half of the game. And what it does from the third battle round onwards, they get sustained hit 1s, and when they are guided, they get sustained hits 2. Now, this is going to reward you if you're a Tau opponent, which is really the angle I'm coming at this from if you haven't already figured it out. This is going to reward you for alpha striking them, because the more you clear off the board, the less of this sustained hits is going to be coming at you. Now, what it does mean, though, is that the Tau are down to just a few units at the end. They're going to be getting more and more output from what they got left. So there is something to worry about there. And high rate of fire units that are getting more critical hits are going to be getting even more. So that's going to tell you where your target priority is. Let's take a unit spotlight. Now, Pathfinders. I believe these are basic Tau infantry, or maybe what used to be a fast attack choice. I'm not sure. The guy I played against, I don't think I ever saw infantry in his army unless crisis suits are infantry, and crude. So I'm not too familiar with these guys. Let's see what they got. Movement 7, toughness 3, which conforms to what I know about Tau. Save 4 up, wounds 1. Leadership 7 up. Objective control 1. So they're faster and tougher Imperial Guardsmen, basically. What do they got here? Then you have, drone burst skin, so they can have a drone. Attacks 4, plus 605 up, strength 5, AP 0. Standard ion rifle, it's heavy, so when they're standing still, they're going to get a +1 to hit with it. Strength 7, AP -1. I'm not sure if these stack. I believe you get a +1 to hit from this, and then you get a +1 to ballistic skill up here from this. And From what I'm hearing, and I'm not 100% sure on this, you're not going to have stacking hit modifiers, but you can stack as a ballistic skill modifier and a hit modifier, just like in 9th edition, which means you have to pay close attention to which one is getting modified. And then they've got their iron rifle overcharge hazardous. Okay, so that's makes it more damaging, more AP. Got it. This looks like it's longer range. Pulse carbine. I think this is their basic infantry weapon. Range 20, attacks 2, ballistic skill 4 up. Yeah, probably because that's the better ballistic skill. Strength 5, AP 0. Okay. Pulse there's their pistol, which is really what they're doing in melee. Because we'll get to that in a second. Rail rifle, devastating wounds, heavy. So this thing is, yeah, okay, aiming -4 damage. This is their kind of like their version of the Magna. Okay, when you get a 6, and it's really hard to save against -4 AP. So anything without a 2-up save is going to be hurting against this, unless you're lucky and they're wounding you with a 5 rather than a 6, or a 4, or a 3, or a 2, because it's going to wound a lot of things on 2. Semi-automatic grenade launcher. Okay, EMP, anti-vehicle, devastating wound. Okay, I don't know why it has devastating wounds on there. I think they should have left it an anti-vehicle, because I don't see why EMP would do devastating wounds against biological targets. That's a little cheesy, but whatever. Fusion grenade, a little bit more powerful, more damage there. This is not a unit I would mind having in any army of mine, but I won't because I don't play Tau. But I don't see anything here that's out of line with other infantry so far. Kind of seem very comparable in a lot of ways to Dominions. They're a little bit faster, but with a worse save. And I'd say a little longer ranged, but then again, they don't have anything here that's quite... Even the rail rifle is not as devastating as a Meltagun, I don't think. Close combat weapon, yeah, they still suck in melee. Sorry, guys, you suck. Okay. Scout 7 inches, got it. Beginning of the target upload. Once per turn, we're using the greater good ability. You can select this unit to be observer unit for a second time, so you can observe. Okay, so this answers my question. You can observe more than once if you have this kind of a thing, target upload. Then you can change who you're spotting for. So default, you can only spot for one friendly unit at a time, but something like the Pathfinder can scout for 2. So will that make Pathfinders very, very useful? Possibly. But if you're a Tau player, maybe you don't want to put too many eggs in the Pathfinder basket, be a little too efficient with spotters, because if we can focus down the spotters, we can take the Pathfinders, we can take out your spotters really quick. Grav inhibitor, subtract 2 from charge units, any unit. This is not cumulative with any other reductions to charge roll. Okay, so pulse accelerator drone, 6 inches of range characteristics of pulse carbines. Okay, these are things that you can add to the unit, I think. Because if this was not war gear, yeah, these are drones. Drones are going to be war gear, so you probably have to pay extra points for that. Okay, that's not as bad. Because the question is going to be, is it worth the points to subtract 2 from charge rolls on a relatively light unit? 6 inches the range of pulse carbines. Okay, yeah, it makes sense too, because you just make it 26 inches if it wasn't. And reconners, with one drone burst cannon, the bearer's unit has the infiltrator's ability. Okay, so you could probably start out, rather than scouting 7 inches, or in addition to scouting 7 inches, you can start out in no man's land 9 inches from the enemy deployment zone if you do this. And you get your burst cannon up here, which is pretty nice little augmentation. Okay. Yeah, I don't think this is bad. The grav inhibitor, that's obnoxious, but if you're paying points for it, it falls more into the obnoxious, but you just have to deal with it, as opposed to the outright haha, screw you of just that it would be if you didn't. So if I'm playing against the Tau, these things are going to be a priority target, because taking away, I think this is going to be the play against the Tau, taking out observers. Now, granted, anything can observe, but if you've got the bigger guns, you don't want to be the observing, because then they cannot also be guided. You can't observe and guide at the same time. Okay, each time you select this unit, if it is not an observer unit, it can use this ability. So you can't observe it. You can't have the same unit get guided by one unit and then guide another unit. So the play, I think, is going to take out their weaker observers first, and that's going to knock them down, because you're looking at a lot of ballistic skill 5-ups and even 4-ups here. I imagine it might be a little bit better on the big things, maybe on the crisis suits or the big vehicles. We'll have to wait and see. And then drones are going to become... Let's go to drones. Drones are going to become war gear. So Guardian drone. This is -1 to wound. That's strong. That's really strong. But I would rather deal with this than having to shoot 2 wound drones off the table. I would much rather do that. Because you can overcome this. Like a 6 is still a 6. You're still gonna get your criticals. The bearer is equipped with the following ranged weapon. Okay, so it's twin pulse carbine. Yeah, that's a decent little firepower addition there. Marker has the marker like keyword, so it can act as observer unit even if it advanced. And also, then you're going to cause the other unit to ignore. So you can observe if you advanced, and you get to cause the other unit to ignore cover. Missile drone has a missile pod, 2 shots, skill 5 stories. So this is a light anti-vehicle thing. This will probably be good against things like bikes, Terminators, Custodians. Probably pretty decent. And shield drone, add 1 to the bearer's wounds characteristic. I'm not sure that this is going to be all that great. I don't think if I were a Tau player to use that much. Might be good on the really big stuff, just because you might avoid getting bracketed down. Okay, weapon spotlight. Now we only looked at 1 unit. Yeah, they showed guard drones instead of the 2nd unit here. Okay, the railgun. Okay. Until I learned about the Magna Rail cannon that the Votan have, this thing was just the bane of my existence. I know somebody's going to probably tell me I'm a terrible player because crisis suits are the Tau's winner, and yeah, they were awful. But every time Tau went first and my opponent moved, he always had line of sight and just deleted something with this thing. 72-inch range, so it shoots off the board unless you're playing a really large game. 1 attack, thankfully. Ballistic skill 4 up. So you are going to, if you can avoid getting this thing spotted, that's going to be a weakness right there. We really want to avoid having spotters, observers for this guy. Strength 20, which is not the highest strength in the game, but it is going to be wounding a lot of vehicles on 2s. But now, fortunately, things like Land Raiders are only on 3. AP -5, so it lost a pip there. And if you can, so this is getting into the -5 is big because now you're getting down to the point where you can deal with it. You can potentially get at least to being able to save on a 6. And it's D6 plus 6 damage. I don't know if this is an improvement or not, because you're looking at a floor of 7 wounds, but the 3 mortal wounds are gone, thankfully. The 3 mortal wounds were kind of the thing that really made it over the top. Okay. Heavy. Okay, so if you're sitting still, it's going to get the +1 hit, so then you're hitting on a 3. And you can get observed to get it down to a 2 probably, and then you have devastating wounds. So if you get a critical, if you roll 6 to wound, you cannot take invulnerable saves against it. Okay. They become mortals, and they'll splash all over the place. That means, okay, so that means there's the potential for the entire thing to become splash damage, but your damage ceiling is now 12, rather than I think it was 15 with the old one when you had both the mortals and the base damage together. And then let's take a look at these storm surges. Now, I only ever dealt with this thing once, and I had no idea what I was dealing with. Okay, focused. So this is, by the way, this is their Lord of War, the storm surge. This is the really big. I think there's one up here. If you don't know what it is, if I'm not mistaken, this thing here, this white thing with these big missile pods on the sides, is a storm surge. Okay. On the focus, now range is only 24 inches when you're doing that thing. Thankfully, 2 attacks. Ballistic skill 4 up, strength 24. Now you're wounding Land Raiders on a 2. AP -6. Yes, we're getting silly. Damage 12. But this does not have devastating wounds. So you're not turning them into mortals, and you're not splashing. So that you can't turn this on a squad of light infantry and then get a critical wound or a critical wound of 6 and blap the entire squad like you can with the railgun. So there is that slight saving here, but you have 2 shots. But the other thing is that this does not ignore invulns. It doesn't have the devastating wounds to get around that. Disperse. Now the range is 48, so going out farther. 6 attacks, same ballistic skills. Now it's down to strength 10, which is not exactly weak. You're still wounding a lot of vehicles on a 3 and so on 4, and you're wounding most infantry on a 2. AP is only -2, so a little bit better. Even your power armor troops can now save on a 5 and 4 damage. So this one will definitely splat a custodian with each shot. Let's see. And combat embarkation. Your opponent's charge phase just after an enemy unit is declared a charge. 1 Tau infantry unit can can nope out into a transport. Okay, so this is kind of cool. I have to admit, this one is kind of funny. If they're hanging out there by their transport, you target them, they can just leap right back into the transport. Which you have to give them credit for at least being intelligent and not standing there taking a charge when you're Tau and you're getting charged by angry space elves on motorcycles or something like that. That would be stupid. So these guys are gonna leap right back in, and it's gonna cost you 1 CP, and it's gonna force the Tau to take transports. And having not run across any of their transports yet, I have a feeling the transports are far less vicious than a lot of their big old suits and their hammerheads and things like that are. So I don't see any big problem with this. If it's burning a CP, yeah, absolutely. I can, and it's very Tauish, so at least thematic there. All right, they believe in the greater good, blah, blah, blah. They support each other. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure quite how that differs from Space Marines, but they do at least seem to care about their lesser infantry, so that's good. Commander Farsight, this guy is a little more melee-ish, and I think he's maybe departing from that philosophy just a tad, but I don't know the lore well enough to say. Okay, do we have any notes at the bottom? Oh yeah, ever want to see a by rolling a railgun hit? Yeah, now you can. So yes, you can when you into Cao Yan in third battle round on, you can get triple hits from the railgun if it is being guided, and you happen to roll a 6. You can in fact do that. So what this tells us, if you see a railgun, you need to kill that thing in round 1 or round 2. Fear of enlightened diplomatic rational discussion. Where is that? Well, they need to talk to the salamanders, maybe. Salamanders are into that. Let's just end it. It puts the fear of the god into the chart. Yeah. No, it probably doesn't put that fear into them because they aren't representing the god emperor. But okay. Fear and enlightened. Yeah, you'd probably rather have a rational discussion than get shot at by a railgun. But I do think, from a person who plays against Tau, that we have 2 clear lessons here. Target the railguns and target the observer units. And you will probably meet success in dispatching the filthiest of filthy Xenos, who are far, far less humorous than the orcs are. I would much rather have a beer with the orcs than hang out with the Tau. But if you're a Tau player, I don't see anything here to complain about. I do feel like you'll still be pretty formidable, and your shooting will be something to contend with. And maybe you'll even improve your reputation a little bit at the tabletop, and not just fire hosing your opponents right off the board. So with that said, let's go on and get into Chaos Knights here really quickly. Now, Chaos Knights, I have to admit, are very cool. I particularly do think the Knight Abominant is an awesome looking model, and I would be kind of down with that, but I'm not about to start a Knights army. They're too expensive, and the same complaint I have, at least so far, as with Imperial Knights, is that it's all the little guys, the war dogs, all the time. Big Knights just don't seem to be the play, or at least haven't been a Knight, and I am much more interested, if I'm going to play this, in the Big Knights. Now, I have played against an Imperial Knight, a big one, once. I played a guy who played Alpha Legion and had a Knight along. And it was pretty formidable, but I also found out that a Telemon Heavy Dreadnought is almost a Knight and can, in fact, beat it in melee if it gets its attacks first. So, with that said, let's get into this. As I have a Lance of Chaos Knights, is nothing but sheer unbridled terror and the hardiest heroes. Okay, so it sounds like, when I've already heard about this army, it's going to be all Battle Shock all the time with Chaos Knights. Battle round 1. So they're going to have Despair. When an enemy unit is within 12 inches of this model, each time the unit takes a battle shock, leadership, subtract 1. Okay, so -1 to Battle Shock and leadership in round 1. And then you're going to have Doom and Darkness starting in battle round 3. Each time the model makes an attack, if the target is Battle Shock, add 1 to the wound roll. Okay, which you're probably going to be using a lot of high-strength weapons anyhow, so you're going to be doing a lot of wounding on 2s probably. And target attacks is Battle Shock, and it's -1 to hit you. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. This is pretty handy. This is especially handy, the -1 to hit, because Big Knights have traditionally been, well, they're easy to hit because they're huge, they're enormous, so it's like shooting at a barn. So anything that penalizes that hit roll is going to be very handy, and especially with devastating wounds seeming to be fairly common, which for all intents and purposes, or anti-vehicle, stuff like that, bypassing toughness in a lot of ways. This is going to help because subtracting from the hit roll is a good way to avoid weapons that circumvent your toughness. You want to target a different step in the combat sequence. Okay, Forged in Terror, detachment roll. Yeah, in the battle shocks to your opponent's command piece of enemies used below its starting strength within 12 inches of cast nice model, and must use to take a battle shock test. For the purposes of this ability, if you have starting strength is considered, well, it has lost one or more wounds. Okay, this is going to be rough on the sisters because you want to lose out of your unit so that they get the benefits of missing models. And that's gonna and this is a 12-inch radius, and because Chaos Knights are big, really big, that circle or oval or whatever shape it is quite a bit bigger than the 24-inch diameter that you'd get it from a single point. So this is going to be tough on the sisters for sure because they kind of want to lose models, but it's going to also give them a lot of ability to debuff the enemy. You're going to be battle shocking them all. That they're going to be fighting from a constant state of debuff. Knight Despoiler. Let's take a look at the Knight Despoiler as their unit. A freely appointed with the Knight Despoiler, showing off the Shadow's Imperial designations, whatever allows them to slaughter more chow. Okay, yeah, Knights from Chaos Knights are more about the power of the individual knight than they are the power of the team. You can change out your Meltagun for a heavy stubber, Trooper Chainsword. You can get a thermal cannon, Dark Flamer, heavy Despoiler battle cannon, and the Warp Strike Claw. Oh, because this is the guy, the default is 2 melee options, and you can change him out with these other weapons, these ranged weapons. And you can do either or both of them. You can have a mix of different ones, or you can have the same. And of course, you get the Curispus weapon. You can have the Havoc missiles, the Rune Spear rocket pod, or the Hellstorm autocannons on top, like a cherry. And okay, nothing else back there. Okay, now what does his stats look like? Movement 10 inches, pretty fast. Toughness 12, comparable to Land Raider. Save 3 up, a little surprising. I would have thought it'd be 2 up. Wounds 22, Leadership 6, Objective Control 10, and he has a 5 up invulnerable. He blows up on a 6. He's a super heavy. War Dog within 9 inches. War Dogs get +1 to battle shock within 9 inches. Okay, so you can use these guys to herd your dogs or walk your dogs, I guess. Seething Hatred. You can roll 1 hit roll or 1 wound roll. So not quite as good as what the Craft World's got. This is more like what Argent Shroud currently has. You get 1 hit or wound reroll every time you shoot or fight, and it brackets at 7 wounds. The Meltagun, they call it a Demon Breath Meltagun, but it's really just a Meltagun, just like now. Thermal Cannon, this is a glorified multi-melta with more shots and higher strength. Spoiler Battle Cannon, Blast Rapid Fire D6 plus 3. So you're getting double, 2d6 plus 6 shots if you're inside 36 inches with this thing. So that's going to average out to 13 shots, ballistic skills, and AP -1 damage. That's, oh my god, that thing, that's already like, holy cow. I'd rather deal with the Melta, at least it's a shorter range. Spoiler Gatling Cannon, 36, 18 attacks. Ballistic skill 3 up, strength 6, AP -2 damage 2. That's going to just shred even elite infantry with that number of attacks. Havoc Missile Pod, 6 plus 1. Okay, this is a kind of this is a little bit weak compared to the other ones. Heavy Dark Flamer ignores cover and torrent. Okay, unsurprised. D6, strength 5, AP -1. Yeah, typical Heavy Flamer. Heavy Stubber, Rapid Fire 3, so that's going to be 6 shots within 18 inches. Not bad. This one's not that brutal. Rune Spear Rocket Pod, attacks 3, 3 up, strength 8, AP -2 damage D6. This is another threat to heavy infantry, maybe light vehicles. Hellstorm Autocannons, anti-flyer. Oh boy. Yeah, I think they're going to wound flyers on a 2. Twin Links, they are going to reroll wounds too. Oh my god, don't be flying around this thing. Attacks 3, ballistic skill 3, strength 7, AP -1 damage 2. Melee opens Reaper Chainsword. The Reaper Chainsword and strike and sweep. So attacks 4 or 12, skill 3 up, strength 14 for the strike, 9 for the sweep, AP -4 and -3 respectively, damage 6 and 2 respectively. Okay, pretty respectable. Titanic Feet. Attacks 4, weapon skill 3 up, strength 8, AP minus 1 damage 2. Not terribly impressive, but enough melee that the more piddly opponents don't want to get in, especially because you're still going to be able to shoot them. Warp Strike, Claw Strike. Okay, this is attacks 4, 3 up, strength 20, AP minus 2, damage 8. It's a little less AP, but otherwise harder hitting than the Reaper Chainsword and the Sweep. 8 attacks, so fewer attacks, but strength 10, AP minus 2, damage 3. So some trade-offs there. Yeah, that's going to be pretty... This thing is going to be ferocious. Well, knights are supposed to be ferocious, though. That's what I would expect. And the Knight Abominant. Okay. Also movement 10, toughness 12, strength 3 up, wounds 22. Leadership 6, objective control 10. You can have Diablo's Heavy Stover and a Volkite Combustor, so it doesn't look like you get options here. No Melt-A-Gun. We already went over this thing's 30-inch range for the Volkite Combustor with devastating wounds. Attacks 9, skill 3 up, strength 12, AP 0, damage 3. So not that much AP. The strength shooting's going to suffer a little bit from that, although the devastating wounds will help overcome the lack of armor penetration. Bale Mace, extra attacks, melee 3, weapon skill 3, strength 8, AP minus 1, damage 2. And Electro Scourge, sustained hits, attacks 9, weapon skill 3, strength 10, AP minus 2 damage. I think I'll go with the Electro Scourge. But also, I think the Electro Scourge is just cool looking. The tentacle arms are very, very entertaining. You have Vortex Terrorist at the start of your shooting phase, like one of your 12. That unit was weak. Okay, of course, you can battle shock somebody with psychic powers. At the end of your movement phase, roll 1d6 for enemy unit within 9 on a 3-up that. So you could just flat out fling mortal wounds out there. On every enemy unit within 9 inches. This thing is going to be tough to charge. And brackets on a 7. Okay. Weapon Spotlight. Dominus class knights. So this thing, presumably, you don't have to have the Dominus equivalent to put it on. 72 inches, attacks 3, ballistic skill, strength 18, AP minus 4, damage d6 plus 3. This thing is... That's actually not... I mean, don't get me wrong, this is a pretty vicious weapon, but it's not as devastating as I thought they were going to show off here. The Warp Strike Claw we took a look at up above. This is pretty cool. Definitely better than the Chainsword. It probably will cost more points. Well, maybe not. The Chainsword does have the advantage of having more attacks in the sweep profile. Yeah, I'd take it though. This looks like it could be a pretty versatile package. Able to engage a very wide variety. You got enough shots here to really count for something. 3 shots, so you're not going to just suffer from that one stray 1 that always seems to land on single-shot weapons. And these are some pretty impressive anti-infantry and anti-vehicle profiles here on the Claw. Dread Hounds. Stratagem. At the start of your shooting phase, target 2 or more War Dog units from your army and 1 enemy unit is eligible target for each of the selected. So you have to have at least 2 War Dog units to do this. Units can only put all weapons equipped by the War Dogs as sustained hits 1. In addition, no enemy use battle shock and unmodified. So your crits happen on a 5. So you're going to get the sustained hits on a 5 or a 6. Okay. If hounds are still to play, that'll be handy. A little bit of shades of the Tau there. If you both have to see both of them, and obviously you have to have at least 2 War Dogs on the table to do this. I think with the Knights, what we're really going to, with this and the regular Knights, what I'm really looking for and hoping to see is a revival of the bigger Knights. There's nothing wrong with the small ones, but I like the bigger ones better. Now, like I said, I had some strong feelings on Chaos Knights, despite their appearance. I don't have strong feelings one way or the other on them, and also much more limited experience with them, so that probably influences that. But I do hope that the players of both will get to enjoy their armies. Although I'm going to be pretty harsh on the Tau as a faction, I'm not going to be harsh on the players. And the faction shouldn't be made to suck just because I or somebody else doesn't like it. If you spend a lot of money making that army and painting it and all that, you should be able to enjoy playing with it. And as for the Chaos Knights, I really hope I get to play these guys more often because Knights present a unique, interesting, and different challenge. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment down below, and ring the notifications bell for more great content from Wilderness Wargaming. And I will see you all again very soon.